Today on Crypto Channel Direct, Warren Buffett slates Bitcoin's use while Tesla defends it. Also, some of the world's most successful businessmen are defending Bitcoin mining, while the people behind Bored Ape almost crashed Ethereum. We also speak with Professor Jesper Buus Nielsen, Concordium's chief scientific advisor, to truly understand the science behind the building of Concordium blockchain. I'm Claire Ross-Brown and welcome to CCD, where I'll be bringing you the news you need to know, powered by Concordium. Berkshire Hathaway CEO and famed Bitcoin detractor Warren Buffett has taken another swipe at the major cryptocurrency. At the company's annual shareholder meeting, Buffett claimed he wouldn't take all the Bitcoin in the world for $25. Buffett made it clear that his opposition to crypto has nothing to do with whether people can make money trading Bitcoin. Rather, his distaste is based purely on principle, because Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Buffett said, whether it goes up or down in the next year or 5 or 10 years, I don't know. But the one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it doesn't multiply. It doesn't produce anything. It's got a magic to it, and people have attached magics to lots of things. It appears that Buffett is looking for Bitcoin to make something, going so far as to compare it to a farm or an apartment. He's happier investing in something that makes produce or creates rent. But looping back on his own argument, Buffett said that there are things that do not produce anything that have value, such as a painting. And he continued to then attack the currency fundamentals of Bitcoin, saying, there's only one currency. You can come up with all kinds of things, but in the end, this is money. Buffett at this point held up a $20 bill and went on to say, this is the only thing that's money. Just as Buffett is anti-Bitcoin, we have a more youthful billionaire who is quite pro-Bitcoin, Elon Musk. Now, his futuristic car company Tesla said this week in a recent SEC filing that its Bitcoin investment is a liquid alternative to cash. Tesla reiterated its pro-Bitcoin position, stating that the coin has long-term potential and is a liquid alternative to cash. The filing also confirmed that the electric car maker did not sell any of its Bitcoin holdings since the last quarter. So who do you think is right here? Do you think that Bitcoin needs to produce something to have value, or are you on Tesla's side and see it as an alternative to cash? Let us know in the comments below. We're going to stay with Elon Musk for the next story. Now, the Tesla CEO added fuel to fire when he questioned Bitcoin's environmental impact last year due to its energy-consuming mining methods. And the debate still rages on. And now other businessmen from the crypto world are defending the major coin. The likes of former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, Tom Lee, and Michael Saylor have written to the Environmental Protection Agency, otherwise known as the EPA, to refute claims made by House Democrats calling on the agency to investigate the environmental effects of crypto mining. Democrat Representative Jared Huffman, along with nearly 24 House legislators, wrote to the EPA last week, asking them to ensure mining companies are in compliance with the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act. The legislators pointed out serious concerns regarding reports that cryptocurrency facilities across the country are polluting communities and are having an outsized contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. The rebuttal letter makes the case that House Democrats got a lot wrong in their messaging about proof-of-work mining. For example, the letter says data centers that contain miners are no different than data centers owned and operated by Amazon, Apple, Google, etc. Each is just a building in which electricity powers IT equipment to run computing workloads. But the representatives are also concerned with the electronic waste from mining. They estimate that Bitcoin mining produces 30,700 tons of electronic waste annually. This is also refuted in the counter letter. Dorsey, Saylor, and the rest say that legislators cited a widely criticized research study that makes bold assumptions about the depreciation timeline for mining rigs. Now, where do you stand on this debate about Bitcoin power usage? Should the mining of Bitcoin be more controlled and forced to be more sustainable? Or do you think it's an overinflated concern? Do let us know in the comments below. Yuga Labs, the company behind the Bored Apes, NFT announced the sale of its latest tokens, which represent plots of land in a forthcoming multiplayer game called Otherside. Now, what they were probably not expecting was the frenzy that followed, which overwhelmed the whole Ethereum network. Demand for the plots was so high that it flooded the Ethereum blockchain, and as users raced to be one of the lucky few able to secure an other deed, transaction fees on the network rose higher and higher until an individual NFT purchase cost more than $3,000 in fees alone. In total, more than $100 million was spent on transaction fees to buy Otherside NFTs, while Yuga Labs took another $300 million in payments. When the sale was over, the company apologized for the chaos it had caused. A statement from Yuga Labs read, "We know that the Other Deed mint was unprecedented in its size as a high-demand NFT collection, and that would bring with it unique challenges. This has been the largest NFT mint in history by several multiples, and yet the gas used during the mint shows that the demand far exceeded anyone's wildest expectations. The scale of this mint was so large that Etherscan crashed. And this is not the first time Ethereum has been overwhelmed in such a way. First, there were crypto kitties, which slowed things down as people rushed to buy them. Now, this NFT craze. What it does show, though, is that perhaps the cryptocurrency sector would struggle to scale to provide services to the mainstream. There's much talk about the promise of Web3, but at this rate, any non-Web3 sales mechanism works with 100 times less wasted fees, wrote a prominent technology commentator. If it's too expensive to use or it's too unreliable, this is something alpha at best, not ready for mainstream use. Were you one of the lucky ones to get your hands on an other deed? And if so, let us know. How did you handle the huge fees that came along with buying one? On that note, let's deep dive with CCD on what was a record day for Ethereum fees. Now, last Sunday, users paid $231 million in total to transact on the Ethereum network, twice as much as the previous all-time high of $117 million in May 2021. As we discussed earlier, this had everything to do with the Yuga Labs and their Other Deeds NFTs. To understand this better, you need to remember an Ethereum block has a maximum size of 30 million gas, and minting one FT requires between 100,000 and 200,000 gas. The sudden spike in gas demand led to a massive surge in the gas price as eager NFT buyers desperately tried to outbid each other to get their transactions prioritized by the miners. On May the 1st, the mean fee for a simple Ether transaction was $200, but during the hours of the NFT mint, it was multiples higher. One user noted a fee of $3,950 for an NFT that was valued at $35. We have the pleasure of having with us today Professor Jesper Buus Nielsen, Concordium's Chief Scientific Advisor. And we're going to be talking to Jesper to find out a little bit more about what kind of science goes into creating a layer 1 blockchain like Concordium. Hi, Jesper.
Hi, happy to be here.
Oh, so happy to have you with us. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited about talking with you because, you know, we've seen in the news recently that Ethereum fees and transaction wait times skyrocketed. But Concordium has a consensus mechanism that offers crypto finality. So I wondered, Jesper, can you tell us a little bit more about crypto finality and why it's so important in the light of Ethereum's troubles?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the finality goes directly into solving, the price thing. It's more a capacity thing, and certainly something we work on also. I mean, we're working on a mechanism for Concordium for doing sharding, or rather, we've been working on it for the last couple of years, and it recently got published at one of the top-tier conferences in the field, ACM-CCS, which allows to basically get unbounded scalability. That means if the blockchain is running, you know, and people are happy to use it, and you have 10,000 transactions per second that people want to get through, and currently the blockchain can only do 5,000 transactions, you can just turn up the capacity. You can add what is called another shard. And that way you can always have the demand met by kind of the supply, the ability to consume transactions. And that means you can allow yourself to have a fixed transaction cost like Concordium have, which gives guarantees to business. You know what the transaction cost will be tomorrow. And I guess what we're seeing with Ethereum, right, is they have not such a mechanism. And that means when demand goes up, when there's a lot of transactions, the ability to consume the transaction is still fixed. So the only way, to select is by paying more and more to get through. And therefore you get the price skyrocketing. So this is certainly something, we are working on, mechanisms to solve, in this case, sharding.
Yeah.
Finality, as you mentioned, is certainly important too. So finality more has to do with what we could call delivery time, the time it takes for a transaction to appear on the blockchain. So I send a transaction to some node in the network. How long will it take before it appears in its place on the blockchain? And with early generation blockchains like Bitcoin, Ethereum, this waiting time, if you actually want to be sure that your transaction is where it will be eventually and it will not move, you have to wait for hours. And actually, if you really look at it and you're paranoid enough, you have to wait probably for a day. And that's a long time to pay for a bag of peanuts down in the shop. Right? You pay, you wait for a day, and then you can walk out. So one of the things we looked at early in the center was a finality layer for these Nakamoto-style blockchains, as they called Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Concordium, which was an open problem at the time. No one knew how to solve it. And then within like the first year or something, that was one of the things we solved. It's one of the first things that actually then got implemented in Concordium's protocol stack. And what we managed to do there is to make mechanisms that makes it, detects when a transaction is where it is and can tell the world when it will stay there forever, and got that time down to seconds. Right? So it's quite an improvement. We took it down from a day, or in best case hours, down to a few seconds. And that's important for adoption, right? At some point, if we really want to put these technologies into, every payment device in the world, you put your card there, it says beep, 2 seconds later you can walk out with your bag of peanuts. That's where we want to be, right? So this we were very happy about, and they were also, of course, super excited to see it actually implemented and running in a real world blockchain. Sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, but that was great. No, I liked it, and I liked the analogy with peanuts too. And another thing that I heard you say, you said before that you think that the blockchain space is built on sand, and I was a little bit like, what do you mean by that? And also, can a more scientific approach change all of that?
Yes. For sure in the beginning, most of it was built on sand, and to a large extent still. And what I mean when I say that is, it's being built by tinkering, kind of, if I can say that. And it's a great approach for some things. Like if I'm building a kite in the garden with my daughter, we try to put it together, we try to fly it. If it doesn't fly, we fix it a little bit, and at some point, it flies. And a lot of stuff is built like that. It's also a great approach if I'm, some hacker in the basement, I'm building my own little game. I build it, I put it out, sometimes it breaks and I fix it, no one gets hurt. But if you're building a cryptographic system like a blockchain that is going to secure value of billions, worth billions of US dollars, this is not such a great approach, right? Because when stuff breaks, money actually disappears. And you can find these, places on the internet keeping track of how much money got lost in the crypto space this year, counting up. Last year, it was something like 20 billion US dollars. For me, that's a lot of money. And this year so far, it's $26 billion. So it's going up. Huh? So we see more and more stuff apparently being built on sand. And the problem with the tinkering approach is you discover that stuff doesn't work by putting it into use and seeing it break. Huh? So you don't know really what you're doing, and then you try it. What we do in the scientific approach is it's the other way around. We prove that stuff works before we put it out. And so it's very nerdy. So we take, we try to specify in math what should the system do, what kind of behavior is tolerated and what is not tolerated. And then we describe using math what the system that we implemented is actually doing. Unfortunately, the code is already kind of math, so we can take, kind of that description of the system. And then we prove using math this system is behaving according to this specification. Money doesn't disappear. Down to last principle, QED, done. And then we put it out, and we know it doesn't work. This is extremely time consuming. It can take a year, and it did that, for example, with the sharding mechanism and with the finality layer. It took respectively 2 years and 1 year to do these proofs. Right? And of course, you're improving stuff under the way because you realize you make mistakes. But this, I mean, it takes 5 researchers at top universities to doing so, also a lot of money. But in the end, you know the system works. Right?
Yes.
And the problem with the tinkering approach is you add layer and layer. Sometimes you discover a bug. Some of them you don't discover, so they're still there. As you add complexity over the years, you're just piling up bugs. And at some point, someday, when your blockchain is worth $100 billion US, someone will, find these bugs, and then one day all the money is gone. And that's the sand, That's a rainy day. The foundation of the house is gone, and you didn't realize that it was there. So that's a very, very dangerous approach. I mean, it's great for experimenting, but at some point the crypto space had to move in another direction, actually start proving that stuff works. Unfortunately, we are seeing that now happening. We're seeing several big science-based projects in the space. I mean, just to mention a few, like Concordium, also there's a project out there called Algorand, there's Cardano, and we're also now seeing Ethereum beef up on science and starting to hire very serious scientists. So people are starting to realize this is the way you do it. Right? Unfortunately, we're then there for Concordium, been there since 2017. So we have a few years on that trend.
So you're a bit ahead there. And can you tell me, Jesper, a little bit more now? You're working at Aarhus University with the Concordium Blockchain Research Center. Can you tell me a little bit more about what goes on there?
Yes. So I mean, the Concordium Foundation is funding a free research center at Aarhus University that I'm leading. And what we're doing there is we're doing basic research, like the really long-term stuff. I mean, we sit down and decide, well, it looks like no one solved finality. Someone should do that. Then we look at it, and then 1 or 2 years later, we put out the paper. So that's the time span of the stuff we're doing there. And then we're working very tightly with the science team in Concordium on the commercial side. We get inspired by the problems they have. They say, "Whoa, we don't know how to quickly decide when a transaction is done." And like, maybe someone should solve finality. We look at that, and we meet with them regularly. And if they have problems, that come out of talking to the tech team in Concordium, we can also kind of consult on that. We have a very big crypto team in our back at Aarhus University. There's like 30 people in the group in general. It's much, much bigger than kind of this COBA group that it's called that I'm leading. So it gives, the opportunity for them also to get feedback from some top researchers at universities. So that's kind of the idea behind the setup. If we then look concretely at what we're looking at, then in the past we looked at this finality, we looked at sharding, we looked at building an ID layer. So for Concordium, we built this ID layer that allows you to be anonymous on the blockchain. In fact, more anonymous than on any other blockchain. Yet at the same time, that should you commit what the authorities consider a crime, someone can show up with a court order at some external party where your ID got registered when you started using the blockchain and actually learn who you are. So we get both, at the same time, high anonymity, but also accountability. The idea being that for mass adoption, this will be needed. At some point, legislation and regulation will come and say, it's illegal to do anonymous transfers. Let's say, in the current space, right? If you could do anonymous transfers with a blockchain like this from Russia to outside Russia, you would be circumventing, some of the stuff the politicians decided we shouldn't do, and you would get hit by it, right? So the need at you need to build in mechanisms that can give some kind of nod to regulation. And that's one of the things we looked at. And then now we're looking at a number of other kind of hard problems. We're looking at anonymous payments, which means that you can make a transfer from one account to another account, and people looking at the blockchain cannot connect the endpoints. They can't see this account paid that account. In its full glory, that has also some problems with regulations, which can be, dealt with. But it's actually mainly thought as a mechanism, for example, to transfer between your own accounts. So let's say I have a number of accounts on the blockchain. I have one where I get my salary from Aarhus University when they start using CCD. I have another one that's kind of my credit card where I go shopping, and I put some money on that now and then. I mean, anyone at Aarhus University can know my salary account because that's where they transfer the money. But I don't want them to know where I spend the money I get in my salary. So I don't want them to know my credit card account. So when I get salary in and I transfer some of them to my credit card, I want that to be anonymous. So my set of accounts kind of don't get linked into a peak because there will be a lot of transfers between them. So to decouple that and make it hard to use traffic analysis on the blockchain, we primarily is looking at these anonymous transfer mechanisms. And so far, I mean, there are some good proposals out there in the space, CCAS being one of them, but other solutions in the space have some drawbacks. And one of the main ones, for example, being that if you want to pay someone anonymous, the receiver has to run a full node on the blockchain. So that basically, you know, if I want to anonymously pay for pizza in the pizza shop, that pizza shop also accidentally have to run a full node on Concordium's network. But not all the pizza shop, not all the corner shops in the world are going to go into the blockchain business, right? I want to be able to show up to someone that just have a light terminal and pay them. And then they should be able to see, oh, Jesper paid me without, you know, being in the blockchain business and running a full node. This no one knows how to do, or we know how to do it now. We're writing up a number of proposals on it. And the next step there is actually to start writing them up because we have more than one proposal there. So we're looking at right now writing up the scientific papers, and then we'll do evaluation with Concordium, the science team, and the tech team to try to evaluate what actually makes sense in practice. We're looking a lot of other stuff. I mean, I can keep going with these. Maybe one thing that's interesting that actually maybe bites a bit into the stuff with the pizza shop is what's called external agreement. And it's this problem in general that when you run a blockchain, there's kind of two types of people in the world. The ones that's running a full node, they're part of running the blockchain. This will be maybe 1,000, 10,000 nodes or something like Concordium. And then there's the rest of the world that we also want to you know, we want to use the blockchain. All the shops, everyone, you know, making contracts and stuff like that. And right now, all blockchains have the problem that only the people that's part of running it can be certain what's going on it. People outside have to rely on asking someone else. They have to ask another node, did someone pay me? But the second you do that, you start breaking, for example, anonymity. If I say, oh, the pizza shop says, did Jesper pay me? You know, this third party knows, oh, Jesper bought pizza. And I don't want people to know how much pizza I buy. I buy too much of it. So in DeFi also, if you're doing decentralized finance, you just want to use this blockchain as a black box. You want to put stuff in and see stuff coming out. You don't want to run a full node necessarily. And in this case, you might not want to trust a third party. You know, did I get my $10 billion? Yeah, you did. And then you didn't. Oops. So we need that blockchains can, in a very concise way, prove to someone that's not part of running it what is going on the blockchain. And that's been a big open problem. There have been solutions out there, but all of them have drawbacks, like breaking anonymity of the people that ask a reader node, as it's called. And then we have a radically different design coming up that we've been working on, where we actually solve this extremely efficient. We're very excited about that. And that I think will be one of the things that we are pushing towards Concordium to put into the roadmap and protocol stack. So that would be something to look for. But first we have to write up the papers and put them out.
The papers. Yeah. Amazing, Jesper. And I can really sense when I'm speaking with you as well, your passion for this. And, you know, I was thinking in your life as a professor, I've always had great admiration for professors. In fact, I'm very tempted to come over to Aarhus one day and if I can, maybe have half a day with you because I have so much I would love to ask you. But where do you get like what's the most passionate thing that you felt with Concordium, where you felt and blockchain? What is that passion? What is it that makes you so excited about it?
Yeah, let's take it in the reverse order. So for blockchain in general, I'm a cryptographer. I've been looking at cryptography since oh Jesus Christ, time travels, maybe 40 years, 30, 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been doing a lot of basic research in cryptography in stuff like cryptographic assumptions, zero knowledge, snarks, distributed systems, consensus. And in the beginning, a lot of this was kind of just hanging in the air. It was great research. It was curiosity-driven research, which basic research should be. But what was really being used in the world were digital signatures. Right? People use digital signatures to sign messages on the internet, so people couldn't change them on the way. When I looked something up in the DNS system, or in Denmark, if you're using this, that's called MitID, where you identify towards the public sector, that was what people used, right? for like 40 years. And we had all this research on the shelves that we have been doing. And suddenly blockchain come around, and it was suddenly all needed. Because in blockchain, you can't hide somewhere. You cannot hide your data in a server in a basement. And you cannot, hide a bug by not showing the code to the hackers, because everything is taking place in plain view. Huh? I mean, in a blockchain, you have 1,000 nodes running the same thing. So they have the data, and half of them could be bad guys. And they have the code. So if there is a bug, they will take the money, and they do, as we see. $26 billion US taken this year. So this is a dream scenario for crypto, because there's no way you can hack your way out of this. You have to understand deep theory to solve this problem. And say, oh, we've been doing that for 20 years. And now, hey, someone needs us. So that's kind of the drive to go into the blockchain space. And I think for a lot of cryptographers, for Concordium specifically, because to be honest, as a crypto group, and we are one of the strong groups in the world, we had been approached several times by blockchains and said, thanks, but no thanks. And what I liked about the Concordium was this focus on regulation. Because you saw kind of blockchain come out of this crypto anarchist kind of space where, blockchains were supposed to replace states, cryptocurrencies supposed to replace real money, so the state cannot see what we're doing, and regulators. And personally, I'm not buying into that. I see a lot of, good stuff in having states and having regulation. So here was a blockchain suddenly that said, hey, we want to do blockchain, but we want our superpower to be, we do it in a regulated way. And we do it in a science way, so it really works, not tinkering. So, businesses, they are actually built on top of it. And so I said, society will actually accept it. And that, I think, resonated with us. And so we decided, let's go with that. And then also personally, I mean, the founder of the blockchain, Lars Seier, is a person I had admired for years. I mean, I think the first time I really got to know him was Team Saxo Bank cycling. I love Tour de France. So he gave me so many summers of Tour de France. So I thought, okay, now it's my time to give something back. But besides that, it was really the regulation. Then the chance, we got offered quite some money for just setting up a completely free basic research center. Yes. And that also resonated with us, right? The foundation understood very early when we said, we insist that the center is free. That is, the people that are being, educated in the center, the PhD student postdocs, they are, hired at the university, and they're supervised by us, and they're not, hired by Concordium. And that was accepted, and it's the only way to set up free research. So it's great. There was a lot of things that were just right.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it sounds like it was a perfect fit. Sometimes in life things are just meant to be, and it sounds like this was meant to be.
It's meant to be,
yeah.
Blockchain is meant to be.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm going to come and visit you one day in Aarhus, Jesper.
Yeah, do that.
I would love to. But thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Crypto Channel Direct, powered by Concordium. Now, I hope that you've enjoyed the show for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe by hitting the button below. And we'll be back next week with news you need to know. Until then, I'm Claire Ross Brown. See you next time.